Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1, GV, Whiskey 1, Good Vibrations. At your service to describe for you, or to relate to you, or to reminisce with you about field day when I was young. And by young I mean a teenage ham radio operator, newly licensed. The whole business was something marvelous to me. And I had a friend across town named Bob, and he and I used to team up together during the wee hours of the night time and operate CW on field day at a place called Assisi Heights. Assisi Heights was crowned by a castle called the Mother House, which was a convent, and a number of the sisters were radio hams, and they let us use their apple orchard for field day. And that went on for a number of years during my late teens and maybe early 20s. There was one year that a violent thunderstorm a few days before field day took one of the trailers, the only trailer we'd put up there so far for field day, and rolled it down the hill. That was the most extraordinary thunderstorm probably ever to strike Rochester, Minnesota. But in June, the apples in that orchard were not quite ripe yet. They were maybe about the size of golf balls, and they were always green. And I always used to try to eat them, and you could hardly sink your teeth into them. I remember in particular the barbecues that we had every night. There were quite a number of us radio hams in the Rochester Amateur Radio Club. And I remember with fondness, there were a few field days that were rained out, but not very many, really. The one thing that did happen in Minnesota in late June, in the middle of the night, is it always got quite cold. And I mean sometimes into the 40s. And there were a number of trailers there. One was the sideband station, one was the CW station. And of course there were fewer CW operators than sideband operators, so we had more trouble finding people to ride through the night. So Bob and I were it. He would log and I would operate, or vice versa. We'd switch. And we had these big, huge, like check sheets. This was all, there was no computer there sitting there making automatic contacts for you. That was my introduction to the Vibroplex Vibro Keyer. And we just made contacts manually. And I remember with pride when I attained 60 contacts in 1 hour. I thought that was quite an achievement. We were not that great when it came to contesting. There were a lot of times we just enjoyed the ambiance more than the actual operating or trying to win anything. All we were trying to win was a summer night with ham radio. The smell of the propane gas generators was something I remember. They never failed us, it seemed. And we had a station later on that was a satellite station. We had a PSK, or a radio teletype station, or one of these exotic digital modes. I believe back then they called it packet radio, and one guy would come out there with his kites and fly kite-supported antennas. He was not a radio ham, but he would listen with that stuff. And he had some big kites. They were in excess of 12 foot in wingspan. So we had a whole bunch of people out there having a really good time, and most of the time the weather was fine, or once in a while we'd get plagued by June bugs or some other pest. And a couple of field days we did have thunderstorms that knocked us off the air, but not too often. Not too often. The weather was usually pretty good in June in Minnesota. In fact, that's except for the violent thunderstorms, and I do mean violent windstorms. There used to be an awful lot of those, and tornadoes. That was the season for tornadoes. We had to be on the watch out for those. But for the most part, it was little green apples, barbecued chicken, propane gas generator fumes, and a whole lot of CW good fun without a whole lot of pressure to go with it. Those were the field days of my younger days, my younger time as a ham. How about you? What were yours like? Don't tell me. Just think about it and remember them. They can happen again, you know. Maybe for some of you they still do. To me, it's lost its luster. That's just me, though. An aging old coot who seems to have lost enthusiasm for everything except fantasies that could never possibly work. Like bugging out to the wilderness. Stan Gibilisco signing off, proprietor and operator of W1GV. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The club call sign, by the way, W0MXW, Mike X-Ray Whiskey. They still operate, feel they. Listen for them next time. Maybe I'll go back there next time. Stan Gibilisco signing off, saying 73, which means best regards in ham radio jargon. And so long, which of course in my language means da-da-da-da-da-da.